Very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here and to present the results of the work package 3. This is the one I worked on, and I leaded it together with Carsten Truman from Switzerland. And in my presentation, I will go a bit in detail about the questions we dealt with in our work and the ideas and strategies we developed in the about 2 years of the work of our group. So the context and the basis of our investigation was the question on how can a building be built and operated in a regenerative way. So not only how is developed, but how is it really realized. And this was then connected with the question on how regenerative principle can be integrated in the construction and the operation process. And so the overall question is how it's possible to make a shift from the business as usual to a regenerative construction process. To deal with these questions, we investigated these from the point of view of the life cycle of the building. So starting with the procurement, because in our investigation, all the things which happens before, so the design of the building and the planning was investigated by the working groups 1, what Blair presented, and the working groups 2, what Lisanne presented. So it started with the procurement, so considering everything which happens before the starting of the construction. This means so bidding, tendering, procurement, and so on. Then the second part was the construction, what happens in the preparation of the building site, on the building site, which kind of materials, which topologies, technologies, and so on. Then a very important point was the operation and maintenance of the building. How can this be done in a regenerative and sustainable way? And the last but not least, so it's the last point, but also the beginning of the circle is what happens after the final life stage of the building. So is the building dead or starts a second or a future life of it? So we investigated therefore the regenerative construction and operation process from the point of view of these 4 life stages of the process. And at the beginning, we investigated 3 major challenges and the transformation of the construction sector and the real estate industry. And this regards the regeneration of them from the point of view of the construction strategies, of the facility management, and everything related to the existing buildings, both the historical and the heritage building, but also the normal buildings. So regarding the construction strategies, our main challenge was how can we shift from a degenerative construction strategies to a positive environmental impact of the construction sector. The second one regards the operation of the building and how it's possible to move from a classical facility management, so therefore focused on one singular building, towards regenerative and larger, so urban facility management. And the third point is related to the existing building, as I mentioned it before, and how how existing building can also be a driver for regenerative development, because the numbers of existing building and existing building stock is much higher than the number of the new buildings. So starting from these 3 questions, we investigated it from the point of view of the 4 stages I mentioned it before. And regarding the regenerative construction, it emerged 3 more main steps, which are a driver for a positive environmental impact in the construction sector. So the first one was the use of sustainable and regenerative material. The second one, the implementation of innovative and regenerative technologies. And all these will help to shift from so less bad strategies into a positive impact on the environment. And the Restore contribution was split into two stages. The first one, the bidding and procurement stage, and the second one, so the construction stage itself. So in the procurement is crucial for the regenerative building because it makes the transition between the regenerative design vision into reality. So the aspects analyzed there for a sustainable procurement have been analyzed in the working group, and one of the main focus was put on the instrument and tools for a regenerative procurement. And in special, we investigated the tools of the PQQ, so the pre-qualification questionnaires, and which are tools to raise the awareness and force the change throughout the supply chain. So this is a very useful instrument for the client, and it allows him a sustainability understanding from the potential construction supply chain. So we developed a template which can be used in more or less every construction process. And this gives the possibility to investigate at the beginning how sustainable or potential sustainable or regenerative are all the actors involved in the construction process. Then we move to the second field investigated, and it's namely the construction process. And this was really important to understand how we can shift to regenerative and positive environmental impact. So the key aspects, I mentioned it also before, are the material used, the technologies used in the construction, and all the tools which support the construction process, like norms and certifications. The three fields have been investigated through a survey, and the results were very interesting, and they helped to the identification of the barriers, but also the challenges and the opportunities for a wider use of emerging materials and technology in the construction sector. Furthermore, the improvement of the knowledge was identified as a key aspect for the shift toward a regenerative and sustainable construction process. And in our report, we have a large analysis of all the results of this survey and in which country, which technologies is more diffused. Then trying to answer the question or the challenge related to the sustainable facility management, we investigated what sustainable facility management means. So the three steps and topics we identified are the first one, so the integration of the facility management during planning and construction. This means integration in an early design stage. Then the second point is related to the settings of the building services, so the adjustment during the operation of the building. And the third one is the shift from the classical view in facility management, focusing on an individual building, to the neighborhood level or the level of the entire city. In the work of the working group, these topics have been especially investigated from the point of view of the environment and the user's health. And the contribution of Restore was in the definition of the new targets of the facility management in order to make this change possible. So the goal is a continuous optimization to maximize the benefits both for the environment and the users, and at the same time also assure that the initial state is maintained or enhanced. So this is possible, for example, moving from the traditional scheduled maintenance toward on-demand maintenance, or for example, through the monitoring instead of single indicators of integrated indicators, and from the thinking in a linear economy way towards a circular economy one. And the topics of the circular economy was also one of the main aspects investigated in the future life, which tries to respond to the challenge about the regenerative drivers also for historic and existing building. So this base, the idea is, as mentioned, so the thinking that a building have a future life after the completion of their traditional life. And within this framework, we identified two main steps. The first one is the adaptation of existing buildings to avoid potential negative impacts. And the second one is the rethinking of the concept of existing building and waste, and think of the buildings as a resource and urban minds for new building. In the work of Restore, in this working group, we investigated the concept of circular economy, adaptability, flexibility, and all this was investigated focusing on the concept of and potential of waste. Indeed, the concept that building users use the building until they are worn out, it's not longer usable, and this was an important point we investigated, and we evaluated regenerative initiative like, for example, cradle to cradle or building as a material bank. So. And especially one of the outcomes of the working group within this topic of the future life was the development of a roadmap for the implementation of circular economy thinking, which, as you can see in this graphic, starts from the change of the mentality and the understanding of the concept of waste up to the education, and then we move to the process we mentioned at the beginning. So the loop is closed with procurement, construction, and operation. And in this idea, it was so we tried to set the basis for the implementation of circular economy thinking in the construction process from a practical point of view. And this was also the last topic of the working group 3. And I hope I could give you a brief overview of what we've done in our working group. And if you have more interest on this topic, you can download the publication of our works from the Restore site in the booklet called Regenerative Construction and Operation. Thank you.